Welcome into the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show, presented by Steven Singer Jewelers. Welcome in, everyone, on Farzy Show YouTube page and Jacob Media YouTube page as well. Everyone's pissed at weather, people. Phillies get their home opener today. Sixers absolutely mail it in against the Heat, which is not at all what I wanted to see, but should have expected. But I expected a loss. I just didn't expect a blowout at the hands of the Heat like the Sixers suffered last night. And we'll get into a little NFL draft because I was reading an article from a couple days ago from our friend Ruben Frank about what Howie Roseman could be doing in this draft. And this is, and I know I use this phrase a lot, but it invokes the, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. And it involves Howie Roseman trading back not once, but twice in the first round. So that is a little nuts. But by Howie Roseman standards, maybe not all that nuts. Let's start it off with the Phillies home opener that was supposed to be yesterday in South Philadelphia. Let's pause on that for a second, because we received word well in advance that game was going to be pushed back to today, Friday, for the Phillies home opener. Zach Wheeler will be on the hill this afternoon in 3:05 start time for the Phils. I never get mad at weather, people. I don't know what it is. I think I have traced it back to my days of Catholic school where I didn't have to look at the weather because what I was wearing was already decided, and all I had to know was whether or not it was jacket weather. All right, I've compared notes with other private school kids, and they're along the same lines. I never looked at the weather. It's not a habit of mine to look at the weather. Whenever I do look at the weather, I go, what might it do? It might do that. I'll bring an umbrella. I'll wear a jacket. Or maybe I won't have a party on that day. Maybe I won't go out that day. Whatever. I never base huge decisions off of the weather. I will say the year I got married, my wife became a meteorologist and was reading every little thing about what the weather could do on our wedding day. And it turned out it was supposed to rain. It didn't rain. No rain. Not even a drop. It was beautiful. Lucky us. But I bring this up because I don't get mad at weather people. They're taking their best educated guess, a lot like, some sports commentators, myself included, might do. And then let's say the Eagles don't draft the person we thought they were going to draft. They don't draft the person we thought they were going to, or they thought they should draft. You get it wrong from time to time, and weather people certainly get it wrong from time to time. And I'm going to go against the current. That's right. I'm going to be a salmon today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go against the current. I'm not mad. I'm actually glad that they called the game. You know why? Because nothing pisses me off more than when a ownership, when a team, when an organization takes advantage of fans the way they do when they just wait and sit around to call a game after everyone's already driven down to the ballpark. Everyone's trapped in the ballpark now, more or less, and they're spending that money. They're spending that scroll, okay? Nothing drives me more crazy because it's like, just call the game. Just call the game. Just call the game. You're just milking this right now to sell more beer, sell more nachos and hot dogs and whatever else you got. And I'm not just saying this is the Phillies. I hate when teams do this in general. And yes, baseball is the sport that they do this. I hate it. You know the game's going to be called. Now you're just making money. Now you're going to make more money when these fans are back in the ballpark at another time. I love the fact that they called it as early as they did. Did I think it was bold that they did that? Because of my previous stated feelings about the weather, it might change. This is what might happen. Yeah, I thought it was bold, but I'd rather that everybody drive down to Citizens Bank Park, hang out, spend their money, and then have to come back, hang out, spend their money, and actually watch a baseball game. So it actually saves fans money. I feel bad. Don't get me wrong. I feel bad for the fans that went down there, the fans that were supposed to be in town and watch this game. They had to fly out, or maybe they had all these arrangements and they couldn't get off another day. I feel bad for those fans. But I think for the vast majority of fans that are still going to be able to make the game on this Friday, I feel good for you. I'd rather you not have to make two trips. So I know everyone loves to get pissed off at the weather people, and I know everyone gets involved in the weather, the 5-day forecast, and what the hourly forecast is going to be, and I really try to break it down. But I'd rather the game already be called than people go down there and get shaken out with coins falling out of their pockets 2 days in a row, as opposed to just one day. So I might be the only person on the planet that doesn't really get pissed off at weather people. So I didn't have a problem. I'm against the current in that regard. If you're the smaller group of fans that can't make the Friday game, can't make today's game, I'm sorry. Everybody else, though, that's still going to go. Congratulations, you're going to opening day, and hopefully you'll start to witness the turnaround that will be the Phillies 2023 season after a 1-5 start. Check out this article. I'll reference it again later in the show. But my man, Evan Macy, who's been on the show a bunch of times, he comes on for baseball. He's a sports editor over there at Philly Voice, wrote a great article about the Phillies and their 1-5 start. And it highlights a lot of numbers. We'll go over it a little bit later with Evan. Highlights a lot of numbers that show you just how bad it's gotten for the Phillies. Most notably Nick Castellanos, for instance. And it has not been a pretty start to the season for Nick Castellanos. There is a name that does come up. And I know people look back on this name with great fondness, both for what he was able to do on the baseball field and the entertainment he provided to the Delaware Valley, especially the ladies, off the field. And that's Pat Burrell. One thing Pat Burrell would do so often is something that Nick Castellanos is doing right now, and that's striking out looking. The called third strike is something that is haunting Nick Castellanos right now, and he might be the first person to really be the victim of the called third strike, more so than Pat Burrell since Pat Burrell. He has been unbelievably terrible in the first 6 games of this season. And the one thing he is not doing, and this is where Pat Burrell would get called out on strikes. Nick Castellanos, the difference is he gets called out on the pitch on the outside corner. Pat Burrell would get called out on the pitch on the inside corner and do that little, what did the late, great John Marzano used to call it, the Burrell shuffle, where he would scoot out. He'd scoot the old behind out for a pitch that was painting the inside corner. Strike 3, and he'd get rung up every time. I don't know if he led the league in called third strikes, but that's the way it always seemed with Pat Burrell. For as much as, he's a 30 home run guy, knocking runs, and he would kill the Mets. Oh my God, he would kill the Mets before Chase Utley killed the Mets. It was awesome. But watching Pat Burrell with that called third strike was awful. The worst I've seen since then is Nick Castellanos and how he has started off this season. Now, again, this is just 6 games. He's on an unbelievable pace right now to get called out on strikes. So let's hope that they can knock those numbers down just a little bit. Evan Macy will be joining us a little bit later in the show. I know it's a long season. We all know it's a long season. In baseball, you can never jump to the conclusions. You can only react in the moment. But you can't say, oh, well, this is how it is now, so this is how it's going to be for the next 156 games. Pump the brakes on that. Let's all hope that we get better vibes today that they're back in Citizens Bank Park. So we'll talk about the Phillies home opener today a little bit later in the show. The 76ers tipped off last night in South Philadelphia. They tipped off last night in South Philadelphia against the Miami Heat, a team that they could indeed face in the postseason. They had an opportunity to lock up facing the Nets in the first round of the playoffs with the win. Now, the Nets could still win a game. And, what did you know? The Nets play the Sixers in the final game of the season. So the Sixers could just go ahead and hand that game to the Nets, which is what it seems like the Sixers are going to do. I'm watching this game last night, and from jump, the Sixers looked terrible. Abysmal, actually. They allowed the Miami Heat to knock down 18 threes throughout last night's game. And I think in the third quarter, Doc Rivers really understood what was going on. He tried motivating TNT, got the clip of him at the bench. I never take a lot out of those little conversations because if it meant something, they wouldn't put it on TV. But whenever it's a motivating speech, I try to listen in. And Doc, his whole point was, you're not getting out there to play defense. So they know it. So they're taking advantage of it. But then maybe a quarter after that aired, Doc Rivers had a one-on-one with their sideline reporter on TNT last night. And they were asking about, hey, you got the 3rd seed locked up. So, and Doc was just like, yeah, I kind of know where you're going with this. Are we just not playing tonight? Doc did everything in his power to not say that his team was mailing it in. So I give him credit that he actually tried to defend his team. It wasn't the same old Doc Rivers that he gives us after every game where the Sixers really try to struggle, and he comes out after the game in the post-game press conference and he says, they just wanted it more than us. The other team, they just wanted it. They beat us to every ball. They hustled every rebound. They just wanted it more than us. Doc, instead of saying, I think what was the obvious, which was the Miami Heat wanted it more than the Sixers because the Sixers already have things locked up pretty well in that third, the third playoff seed right there, which they do. He instead just played it politically, which is something we really don't see too often from Doc Rivers when it comes to attempting to protect his players. He's usually revving up the bus every chance he gets to just throw them under there. But last night he was like, we all know what's going on. We all see what's happening. We're playing lackadaisical basketball. Miami Heat want to make a point. Jimmy Butler in the third quarter makes that great baseline jumper, gets fouled in the process, goes to the line. But in between, there's a little finger wag at the 76ers. I don't know if that was individual to this team or if it was the organization as a whole, as in you shouldn't have gotten rid of me. More on that in a second. But this game was the definition of mail it in for the Sixers. At one point, the Sixers trailed by as much as 31 points was the largest lead that the Miami Heat was actually able to 33 points. They were able to muster up there on the 76ers. They were 18 of 39 shooting from beyond the arc, the Miami Heat last night. That's how bad it was. The thought crossed my mind watching last night's game, and it was the Bam Adebayo layup late in the second quarter, just before the half, where he got about 3 different attempts at a layup from within the semicircle, and Joel Embiid was down there, and he still got the layup. On the third attempt, he got the little tip-in layup. And I thought the Sixers, this is a brilliant move by the Sixers because it's their last home game, so they're not going to not play Joel Embiid and James Harden. Tyrese Maxey sat out with a stiff neck. Hopefully he recovers quickly. And it's the last home game of the season. Fan appreciation night. They're not going to not play these guys. So it was a rest the guys while they play type of situation. At least that's what it looked like. And you never want to see your team play that bad with their starters in right before the playoffs, especially against the team that, oh, by the way, just happened to knock them out of the playoffs last year. So I go into the dark recesses of my mind. And I realize that these guys shouldn't be playing, but they are because it's fan appreciation night, last home game, so that's fine. But you never want to see your team play that bad right before the playoffs. So then, of course, I start thinking about, okay, they face the Nets in the first round. They beat the Nets. Awesome. They go on to the second round. They potentially play the Miami Heat in the second round of the playoffs. Cool. I don't want to face the Miami Heat. I've been saying pretty much every day for the last 3-4 months, it's a 3-horse race in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs don't bother me. The Heat didn't bother me. But the Bucks, the Celtics, they certainly bother. The Knicks, they don't bother me. Right? The Hawks, no, they don't bother me. But it's 3-horse race. It's a 4-horse race, is what I'm saying right now. And here's why. Jimmy Butler, I'm not saying is Michael Jordan. I'm not saying he's the GOAT or anything like that overused phrase nowadays. I don't want to see Jimmy Butler in the playoffs again. And when I tell my grandchildren about the process, when they ask me about it, I would love for this year the Sixers to go on some kind of insane run, win a championship, and then they three-peat, and all of a sudden the process was a no doubt about it slam dunk, great idea, and it worked tremendously better than most of us could have imagined. I want that to be the end of the story. However, I don't think that's going to be the end of the story. I think the end of the story is the Sixers go this entire time without winning a championship. I really hope that this story doesn't end with, and the Sixers couldn't even make it past the second round of the playoffs. I hope that's not what I have to tell my grandkids when we're all huddled around the fire. I don't know. In a winter night around Philadelphia. I don't know. But I don't want to have to tell them, but I think I'm going to have to tell them that the end of the process, the man that killed it wasn't Adam Silver making the Sixers fire Sam Hinkie or making the Sixers force Sam Hinkie out by bringing in Jerry Colangelo and later Brian Colangelo and then later Elton, a little heartbeat there of Brett Brown as the guy with the final fact, whatever. But the man that killed the process, his name was Jimmy Butler. And I think if most Sixers fans are being honest with themselves, if they could go back, and those that were pro-process, such as myself, I wasn't as pro-process as some others, but I was still, this is what the Sixers need to do to get out of this mediocrity. When it came to, if you could make one decision, change one thing for the Sixers to help make that process more of a success, what would it be? I think if most people are being honest with themselves, it'd be letting Ben Simmons walk and keeping Jimmy Butler. At the time, never going to happen. So let's acknowledge that. This is 1,000% hindsight. 1,000% hindsight. But if you could change the past, make one change, do one thing different, I think some people might jump on the Jason Tatum idea, although some people say, he was never available. I think he was available. Or would it be Jimmy Butler? I think there's two answers that would jump out the fastest. Jason Tatum or Jimmy Butler. The guy that I go to is the Jimmy Butler deal. You were never, of course, going to do it in the moment, but now in 1,000% hindsight, that's the man that was the one Jenga piece that you pulled out and everything else seemed to come down around it. We thought it was on this great projection. Jimmy Butler loves Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid loves Jimmy Butler. We got Mark Zumoff on the call. You are a 76er. That game-winning shot that Jimmy Butler hit. And then Jimmy Butler goes to Miami, plays in the finals, makes the playoffs, continues to be that hustler that we've always known him to be. And Jimmy Butler, make no mistake about it as well. I mean, you talk about a guy that wants to play like the city of Philadelphia wants their athletes to play. Jimmy Butler is that guy. He is him, right? Watching him last night, watching him in every game he's played against the Sixers. I really love the end of the story of the process to not be, and then kids, the Sixers chose Jimmy Butler, or the Sixers chose Brett Brown and Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler. The end. Now let me tell you about the disappointing year the 2023 Phillies had. Anyway, I don't want that to be the end of the story, but I feel like that is, unfortunately, the end of the story. And after the Sixers lost to the Heat last night, those awful thoughts go back into my brain. It looks like the Sixers are going to be facing the Nets in the first round of the playoffs, possibly the Heat. Fingers crossed. That doesn't happen in the second round. The Heat are still very much going to be a tough out for the Sixers. They do something really well. They hit threes. Sixers do not defend the three rather well. A couple of things coming up here with the Sixers. What's going on here in the not too distant future? Let's see here. Here we go. Keith Pompey, after the game last night, tweeted this out. The Sixers center Joel Embiid will not play against the Atlanta Hawks Friday. He will not be at State Farm Arena, according to sources. The MVP frontrunner isn't even traveling with the team tonight to Atlanta. James Harden, his injury can't make it worse. He's just got to deal with pain, according to the report last night during the game. Joel Embiid, I don't know what his pain tolerance is right now, what he's dealing with, but you're going to get a lot of rest. The 76ers big man is going to get a lot of rest. And it seems like a lot of other guys are going to get rest as well. For the people on the podcast, that was a tweet from Keith Pompey. This is a tweet that I'm reading right now from our friend Kyle Neubeck over at Philly Voice. He says, Doc Rivers tipping his hand a little bit for the 76ers and the approach that he's going to be taking over the next couple of games. G League team is up right there, 7 in the championship, and that was really important. That was something that was reported last night by Kyle Neubeck. G League, by the way, the Delaware Blue Coats were able to go out there and take care of business in their G League championship. So they are G League champions. So that is definitely something worth celebrating. But Doc Rivers paying attention to what the Blue Coats were doing in the G League championship is great because he's going to get a lot of those guys up at the NBA level for this game. So you could be seeing Jaden Springer coming back for the Sixers to get some time at guard, get some run at guard, and I'd love to see it. The Sixers and the Blue Coats, by the way, the Blue Coats have had one heck of a run, whether it be with Paul Reed or whoever. Isaiah Joe, who's just a bomber right now at the NBA level. They're having a hell of a run with whoever their Blue Coats are. Isaiah Joe was on this program a year ago, and he was saying some great things about what he was being told, about what he was working on, and well, now it all seems to be coming to fruition for Isaiah Joe at the NBA level. So good for him. But yeah, Sixers G League champions, the Blue Coats G League champions. Fantastic to see that. I had a little bit of a scare yesterday. I was going back and I was reading some articles on the draft, and I missed an article by our friend Ruben Frank that came out a couple of days ago. And in that article, and we haven't talked a lot of draft, we'll talk more as it gets closer. But the Eagles are in a situation here where they don't have a lot of draft picks and they don't have a lot of money. The Eagles are in a situation where they need draft picks and they need to free up some money. They need to be cost effective in this draft, the next draft, and probably many more drafts after that with the money that you're going to pay Jalen Hurts. And this is taking into consideration what I've been telling you all along, which is that Jalen Hurts will take some kind of deal that is easy to defer money with. You can keep pushing money back. You can look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who I've been saying $450 million with all the incentives and everything. It's over $500 million. That's the deal that he originally signed. However, it's already been restructured to help keep players on that team. Tyreek Hill, not one of them. But that's where we're at right now with the Sixers. That's where we're at right now. With the Eagles, and that's where we're at right now with Jalen Hurts in the contract. And what the Eagles are going to be basing their draft strategy on is ultimately saving money. So Reuben Frank took this to the absolute next level when it comes to what the Eagles could be doing in the draft. Now, coming into this draft, the Eagles are picking at 10, 30, 62, 94, 219, and 248. So right there, they have 6 draft picks. After trades that Reuben Frank is predicting that the Eagles make, the Eagles will pick at 12. So that means they trade back with their 10th overall pick. Then they don't pick again in the first round. So they trade out at 30. That's something I said the Eagles will be doing all along. Right? Howie Roseman is not making 2 selections in the first round. That's not happening. But then they trade out of that first round with their 30th pick, trade out of that first round, get 53. So they get a second round pick. Then they get 2 second round picks, a third round pick, another third round pick, a fourth round pick. Stay with me. And then they'll pick again at 151, 198, and 219. So you go from a 6-player draft to a 9-player draft, just like that. All in the blink of an eye with our friend Reuben Frank. Now, it wouldn't shock me if Howie Roseman traded back with that 10th overall pick to move back a couple of spots. It wouldn't shock me. By then, I think most people will be upset that Bijan Robinson will be off. Lucas Van Ness will be off. Obviously, Jalen Carter will be off. A lot of guys that people have had their eyes on would be off the board by then. So where do they go? What makes me feel like the Eagles aren't going to do this with both picks, either trade out of the first round or just trade back a couple of spots like they would in this case from 10 to 12 in the first round. What gives me a little bit of confidence that they won't do it is the players that Reuben Frank thinks that they'll pick. The one player he was talking about was Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois, who has everything on paper that the Eagles love. He's a 6-foot corner, perennial starter in the league. Obviously, if he's a first-round pick, you're looking at that. He's a phenomenal competitor. He's got a great edge to him. And then my favorite thing that we ever say about any draft pick ever, student of the game, a true student of the game, loves to learn, okay? I can't see the Eagles going corner early in this draft. And as Reuben points out in his article, since Lito Shepherd, it would be the first Eagles corner taken in the first round since Lito Shepherd 20 years ago. So that's saying something. But when it comes to this team and what's being put in front of them right now in this draft, I can't say with a straight face they're going to draft a corner in the first round. They could go Brian Branch. They could go with a safety. Maybe later in the draft, if they do trade back, Branch will probably still be on the board at that point. And they certainly are in that situation, I think, are still drafting best safety available and best player available in their regard. It would really plug 2 holes in that regard in terms of being the safety that they need and also being a guy that can be best on the board. So if they do trade back, that could be the direction that they go. Safety. I don't think they go corner. I can't see them investing the money that they've invested in and the years they've invested in with both Darius Slate and James Bradbury and say, all right, now we're just going to trade in corner. Plenty of time to break yourself in. I don't think that's going to be the case. It's different when you compare it to guys of already having Javon Hargrave, who he only had a year left on his deal, Fletcher Cox, who was only under a 1-year deal at that point. It's different when you draft a guy like Jordan Davis because that's clear cut a future pick. You're gonna have your time on the rotation, similar to a guy like Lucas Van Ness, for instance, who is going to come in here and have time to work his way in the rotation. Was even a starter at Iowa, but he would have time to break his way in a little bit, to mold himself to be an NFL talent. It's not that same regard, but it's similar. I can't see them waiting 2 to 3 years to having a first-round pick from this year's draft be a starter in the upcoming season. and then having to wait, and then finally he gets released. I mean, onto the football field to be a starter, not like they cut him, just to be clear. So that kind of made me go, all right, well, they could certainly trade back, and it wouldn't shock me, but I don't see them no matter what. I don't see them making 2 first-round selections. So then what do they do with their 30th pick? They trade out of that first round. Maybe they trade it for a future asset now and a pick later, meaning a future asset that could help them right now, and then they trade for a pick maybe in next year's draft, maybe a pick later in this draft, because the money is going to be tight, as I mentioned earlier. So then the name that came out here was Jack Campbell in that second round, a linebacker out of Iowa. He's a monster, 6'5", big dude, very aggressive. Again, all the great things you could say about a linebacker coming out of the draft. A potential rookie starting linebacker is certainly something you could say about Jack Campbell coming out of Iowa. So another guy from the Iowa Hawkeyes defense. Corner and linebacker. Eagles haven't taken a linebacker since Lito Shepherd. A linebacker in the second round. Nakobe Dean was supposed to be first-round talent. Nakobe Dean was supposed to be at worst second-round talent. And they still passed on him there for Cam Jurgens, which is Cam Jurgens looks like he's going to have a promising career. Would love to see how he shapes up there as the Eagles' right guard of the future next to Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey on the right side of that offensive line. Can't wait to see it. A corner in the first round and a linebacker in the second round would be so against the grain of what we have seen from the Eagles and Howie Roseman and the time he has been the man with the final say with the Philadelphia Eagles in this draft. I'm not hating on any of these guys, and Ruben has a great article, and he's one of the best writers out there. And I don't disagree with the philosophy, but that philosophy for those picks is ultimately what doesn't add up for me. And I know a lot of people are going to be examining a lot of different things. We're 2 weeks removed from the draft, 3 weeks removed from the draft. Right now, when you look at it, you've broken down everything. You've gone through everything. So now it's time to think outside the box. It does not surprise me it doesn't surprise me in the least for Howie Roseman to move back in the draft when it comes to that 10th pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he moved up a pick or two. Don't see where he has the assets unless he defers to next year. But it wouldn't surprise me because Howie's ultimately been aggressive. Did it with Devontae Smith most recently. This is something that the Eagles have done. This is something that Howie Roseman has done. The most shocking thing in this draft would be the Eagles making 2 selections in that first round. That 30th pick I don't think, stand a chance of being the Eagles pick. I don't think it stands a chance of being the Eagles pick. That is going to be the great asset that will then bring you 2, maybe 3 more draft picks. 2 this year, maybe 2 more draft picks this year, and then maybe 1 next year. Because if there's anything Howie Roseman loves doing, it's stockpiling a couple of picks. Maybe you're able to flip that 30th overall pick for a second-round pick next year. Maybe next year you're able to take 2 second-round picks, and you're able to flip that into the first round. Howie loves that type of flexibility. He loves that type of strategy. And he's done it in his last 2 drafts where he's been able to stock up for the future. Not just this year's draft, but next year's draft as well. I would be shocked if the Eagles select at 30. I will be shocked. I won't be shocked if they pick at 10. 10 makes the most sense. Get the bang for your buck right there. Get a player that can come in here and be a starter today, or at least in your defensive line rotation, which is what I think the Eagles are ultimately going to go after. If Jalen Carter's there, he's a slam dunk, no doubt about it. He's the guy you're taking. If he falls to 9, do you try to move up a spot to make sure you take him? Possible. But I don't think the Eagles are going to have the draft capital to move up in the draft. But I'm telling you right now, if there's one guarantee I can make, is that the Eagles don't pick at 30. I think they pick at 10, potentially 11 or 12. Try to give them a couple more picks. But I don't think they pick at 30. That's the one guarantee I could go at looking into this draft. A couple of names that we did throw out yesterday. Jalen Carter was one of them. Lucas Van Ness was another. Brian Branch, another name that I did mention already. So there's a lot of names out there, as one would assume, that the Eagles are said to have interest in. So we'll continue to examine as that goes on. Let me tell you about my man, Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, right there on Jewelers Row. Trust my man with the perfect price. Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Do what I do when it comes to all your jewelry purchases. Do what I do and trust the man with the perfect price. Steven Singer Jewelers. Now, what does that mean, the perfect price? Well, other jewelers will mark things up just to mark it down a couple of bucks in front of you, make it feel like you won something, make it feel like you're such a good negotiator. Steven Singer Jewelers, you walk into the perfect price each and every day. Whether it's the Ready for Love diamond engagement rings, whatever it might be, Steven Singer Jewelers provides the best quality at the perfect price every day. So when you have Ready for Love diamond engagement ring standing by at the ready, know you're going to get taken care of by a real jewelry expert who's going to make you feel like a real family member at the other corner of 8th and Walnut. So you don't have to worry about a sale. You don't have to worry about haggling. You don't have to worry about having the right promo code, whatever it might be. It's Steven Singer Jewelers. You get taken care of each and every day. Make sure you take care of Mom for Mother's Day. Steven Singer Jewelers, one place, one price, the perfect price. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Let me tell you right now about the great people of Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Use promo code Farzy to get 20% off at Manscaped.com and free shipping at Manscaped.com. Manscaped, the leader in below-the-waist grooming with skin-safe technology that helps you manscape with confidence and comfort. You'll love their amazing Platinum Package 4.0, which has their best hygiene bundle yet. It includes their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. It includes their incredible Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, and they come with skin-safe technology that helps you reduce the risk of nicks so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. Check out Manscaped.com. Use promo code Farzy for 20% off and free shipping. How about Freestone Farm CBD? FreestoneFarmCBD.com. You'll love their tropical tasting Bayox that clocks it in a chart-topping 24.1%. And Super CBD, which is half Hindu, Kush, and 21%. Genetics of these guys are off the charts. So trust my mans, the incredible people at Freestone Farm CBD, FreestoneFarmCBD.com. All their premium hemp flower grown in the Garden State. So support local. If you're looking for a new CBD, you're looking to try CBD, Freestone Farm CBD. Get 20% off with promo code Farzy. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsNation.com. Hey, you've heard me talking about Sin City, just down the street from the ballpark, going to opening day. Want to go out with the guys afterwards? Hit up Sin City, great cabaret bar down the street from the stadium. You'll have yourselves a great time, whether it's a bachelor party, a big sporting event, whatever it might be. Enjoy specials. Enjoy the ladies, the beautiful ladies of Sin City. Check them out. Just down there on Passyunk Ave. Check them out. Sin City. Check them out at Sin City. There you go. Before I get to Evan Macy, and before I get to the chat check today, we're flipping the interview as the last thing of the show today, by the way, people. Before I get over there, I just wanted to get into one more thing when it came to the Eagles and this draft, most notably. The running back question has come up. It came up yesterday on the program. It's come up a couple times on the show. And I keep going back to the idea of my friend John McMullen, who you can watch on Birds 365 at 8 o'clock on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. He's convinced that the Eagles are still going after a running back. And not just a running back like in the free agency or in the later rounds, but a running back that is going to be a difference maker on this offense. In fact, he is going to be the leading rusher of this Eagles offense. I have no idea who this person is. I don't think it's a LeGarrette Blount situation where you're trading for a veteran. He's got maybe one more year left in the tank, and he can really let it all hang out there. I don't know if it's a guy that's much later in the draft, really going to be an impact guy. I don't know. I still think it's going to be Kenny Gainwell. I think Kenny Gainwell is going to be your leading rusher this year. I would love to see it's Rashad Penny. I'd love to say that it's going to be him. I think he's going to be great in the red zone. I think they're going to use him sparingly because they're aware of the injury issues he's had throughout his career. They're aware that he's got a lot of injury issues. I'll just say that. I don't want to wish anything upon anybody. But I think they're going to look at that position and get to look at it and say, we have our starter right now in Kenny Gainwell. We have a guy with phenomenal talent in Rashad Penny if he stays healthy. And we have a guy that we know we can rely on in clutch situations like Boston Scott. I still think they add depth to the running back spot, but I don't think it's going to be a huge glaring need for the Eagles in this draft. I don't think it's going to be a high priority. But my man Johnny Mack, who's plugged in, really thinks that the Eagles are going to go after somebody that's going to be a leading rusher. That's something that is, with all the draft conversation I just had, the one name I mentioned is the name everybody's mentioned, Bijan Robinson, and we'll see what he's able to bring to the table here. But I just don't think that they're going to go after him. Let's get to the chat check and see how you beautiful people are doing on this fine, fine morning. Start over here on the Farzy Show page. Weather people wrong from time to time. More like 80 to 15. 85 and 15. It's possible. Man, my allergies kill me today. Where are the weather people on that? Anyway, T-Bro, I hear you. Kevin, what's going on? Morning, everyone, from PJ. Wish I was at the ballpark yesterday. Stupid Glenn and his bow tie. Is Glenn still? I thought Glenn retired. Did Glenn retire? I don't know. Hey, why was there no baseball game at the park yesterday? Because of the weather. I was walking around. I was waiting for it. I did tell my wife who wanted to go into work. She usually works from home. And I was like, if you're going to go in, just so you know, they canceled the baseball game because the weather's supposed to be really bad. So maybe don't go in. She did go in, and it was still fine. Look at that. She said, maybe it'll be bad. Maybe it won't. Hashtag weather. I want the Sixers to play the Heat in the first round of the playoffs so they could send Jimmy Butler to Cancun. I hope that would be the case, but Jimmy's got it in for this team. Oh, PJ, you are going down to opening day? It's still opening day. I know it's the home opener, but it's our opening day. Morning, Mark. Morning, Mihai Sanchez. Good morning, April. Jalen Carter probably isn't falling to 10th pick anyway. I agree with you. Mihai Sanchez. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Happy Phillies home opener. I say Phillies win it. Wait, I say Phillies win at least 50 home games this year. All right. Built to mash, ring the bell. Turner or Schwarber hits a home run today. Have a great Easter. Thank you, B.I. Sanchez. That's how you end it. I love that. Oof. Ray Fitzgerald, the doom of doom and gloom. And I'm not saying you always. I'm just saying this statement I'm about to read. Doom of doom and gloom. Just a matter of time before Embiid wants out. Sixers get eliminated early again. Ray, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong. I'm just saying that is the type of comment that I think about later in the day, and it hurts my heart. It hurts my heart. And it could happen. Here's where I'm at. Joel Embiid's going to be 30 next year. I don't think if they get bounced out again early that James Harden's back. It's another – if James Harden leaves, which I think he's going to, after the Sixers get bounced out early again, second round, then it's going to be up to Daryl Morey to rebuild this team into, I don't know, the next version. Let's see. We've had the Jimmy Butler Sixers. We've certainly had now the James Harden Sixers. We had the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid Sixers. There's a lot. There's another key focus here. Joel Embiid and Maxey? All right, fine. Who else you getting? Luka? All right, no, it's not happening either. But anyway, Ray, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't like it. What else we got? Let's get over to the Jacob Media YouTube page. Excuse me. Jimmy Buckets instead of Ben Simmons. Mint Diggity. Great name. Love it. He's right. They're going to trade back for more picks. I don't disagree with Rube. I think Rube makes a great observation. The Eagles are going to trade back at some point. I don't think it's necessarily going to be with their 10th overall pick and their 30th overall pick. I think they stay at 10, make the pick at 10, trade 30 away. That's what I think they'll do. The mommy? Hello, the mommy. Good morning, Farzy. Good morning, mommy. Mint Diggity. No way we draft Bejan. I agree. We are all on the same page as far as that goes. No question about that. Thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are great as per usual. Ray's got one more. Should have never got rid of Bridges an hour after they drafted the pick. That's a great one. That was the 20 minutes that Brett Brown had like final say over the roster because they didn't have a GM yet. If you remember the chronology, Brian Colangelo outed. They go GM-less for like a month. The draft happens in that time. Brett Brown does the deal. And then Elton Brand gets the gig. Good times. Good times. Thanks, everyone. You guys were great. We're ending the show with the interview today. Stay tuned for my friend Evan Macy, who joined the show. We taped this interview yesterday ahead of opening day. Evan Macy is from Philly Voice, sports editor over there. We'll talk some baseball here on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Right now, the Rothman Orthopedics guest line from PhillyVoice.com. Evan Macy joins us ahead of the pushed back opening day. Opening day is today, so we have that fine shelf life with baseball a little bit. Evan, how are you?
There we go. I'm good. How are you, Mark? Good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you, man. Good to have you. So it hasn't looked pretty, and I hope everyone's following you on social media, on Twitter most notably, and of course checking out your most recent article that helps explain it all when it comes to the Phillies' really, 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 really terrible start to this season. So people should check out your latest article here. Here we are at 1-5 ahead of opening day. You got to put your finger on it. It seems like the blame, well, there's plenty to go around. What has happened to our Phillies from the World Series to now?
I don't know. You could pin it on mental issues because they're making blunders all over the place. The pitching, I don't know what it is. They just came out of the chute. Like every pitcher just is god awful. It's finally getting a little bit better now, but I mean, really, really bizarre. I mean, the hitters are really, really good. And in the article, I was pretty impressed with like the impressive numbers that they're posting, like across the board, hitting wise. I don't know, maybe in spring training they were roughed up by their hitters, and then the pitchers didn't really have confidence. I really can't explain it other than it's a 162 game season, and there are stretches of 6 games that suck for teams throughout the season, and maybe theirs just came at a very embarrassing time.
Do you think that any of the pitchers are having – I mean, we're talking about 42 runs scored here in the first 6 games. Do you think these pitchers are having an issue with the pitch clock more than other pitchers are having? Did they have the wrong approach in the offseason and trying to get ready for the pitch clock? What do you think that problem is with the arms?
That's a great story idea that I'm going to put down on a notebook as soon as I'm done with this interview. I think that you're probably right. Phillies games, I'd have to look this up. They feel like they were some of the longest in the National League. I think that they really took their time. I think on both sides of the ball, actually. I really think, a guy like Rhys Hoskins, who takes a lot of pitches, like he had at-bats that were like 10 minutes long last year. So like that affects both sides. And I think the pitching, honestly, it's for whatever reason, some pitchers are adjusting and the Phillies pitchers just aren't. And, it's tough and you can kind of see it. And, once you get through the first, run through the batting order, it seems like the opposing hitters just like know what's coming. It's bad.
It certainly seems like that. Aaron Nola looked like he was settling in a little bit during yesterday's game, allowed 2 runs while he was in the game, and then the run ended up scoring, or the walk he ended up scoring, or ended up scoring later in the game. So he was charged for 3 in total. Any difference you noticed in Nola from his first start to second start specifically and how he was throwing?
We've seen Aaron Nola be Aaron Nola these first 2 starts. Seeing him give up those 5 runs is not uncharacteristic. We've seen it, especially in the fall. He just, for whatever reason, there's just a bad inning. He's a really, really good pitcher for 90% of ball games. So I guess, maybe the approach has to be that he's got to be a little bit more conservative and rely on the pitches he has confidence in when it starts to get away from him a little bit. He's got the talent and he's like a really, really good pitcher. He's going to get a lot of money when he's a free agent coming up next offseason. But for some reason, he just is able to get rattled. And he did in that first start. And in the second start, the Yankees didn't put pressure on him really like Texas did. And if they had, he may have crumbled again. We don't know.
Is there any chance, and if you're the Phillies or if you're Aaron Nola, would you get a deal done during the season? Is there any chance of that actually happening to eliminate the idea that it's a distraction?
I mean, that's definitely a factor. They said that they wouldn't be negotiating during the season. I think that's pretty common these days, or maybe it's just something that they say. I mean, there's no way to know if, Sam Flood is on the phone with his agent every day. I mean, they could be. But I mean, the worse he pitches, the less incentive the Phillies are going to have to get a deal. And I also think that the Rhys Hoskins situation plays into it a little bit because those are going to be the 2 big ticket items they're going to have to make decisions on. And Rhys Hoskins is looking at a 1-year prove-it deal at this point. He's going to be coming back from a torn ACL. So I do think that the possibility of Hoskins coming back cheap might actually make it more likely that they're able to keep both. And I think that, if Nola pitches mediocre for the first couple of weeks, it would be really stupid for the Phillies not to kick the tires and see if they're able to get a deal done while he's low. That would be a great strategic move. And they haven't done it a lot. So I'm not confident they will, but it would be smart if they tried.
All right, let me run a few injuries by you, just get some updates here. Ranger Suarez, anything we can expect from him in the not too distant future?
Really, the only thing I've heard is sometime in mid to late April. I think they're going to probably want to see him start at least 2 times in the minors. So add a week to whenever he's like ready to go. So I would say 2 weeks is probably the soonest that you'd see Ranger Suarez.
How concerned should I be about Brandon Marsh?
I think Marsh and Hall both have relatively minor injuries. It's been really bad luck, honestly. I mentioned that in the story too. It's just like how many starters are hurt 1 week in? You got Suarez, you got Harper, you got Hoskins, you got Marsh, and now Derek Hall. That's a lot to overcome. I think that they're going to be minor injuries, but there's going to be a lot of stress on the backups and the like AAA pitching depth early in the season. And you have to hope that doesn't have a trickle-down effect as the season goes on.
Let's talk a little bit about Bryce Harper. Took batting practice on the field, put a ball in the upper deck at Yankee Stadium, even though it's really not a brag. It's still an upper deck home run, and I'll take it from a guy who's recovering from Tommy John surgery and a guy I'm eagerly awaiting returns to the lineup. I'm not the only one saying this, but it seems like May could be the return. It looks like he could beat June to come back and join this lineup. What say you, Evan Macy of Philly Voice?
I mean, it's a bold statement when you don't put him on the 60-day DL because that preserves another roster spot, essentially. So 60 days would put you sometime by the end of May. I mean, I think I had this conversation with you last year. I still don't comprehend how he was able to hit the way he did, but not be able to throw. So, I mean, he's just an athletic freak, and he's able to hit. I mean, he could return as a DH sometime in May. That would not surprise me. And then they would ease him back into the field because for whatever reason, the elbow going this way isn't the same as the elbow going this way. I don't understand it. But the more the Phillies lose, the more you can be sure that Harper is going to just like go absolutely crazy trying to just get back as soon as he can.
Yeah, give me the cortisone shots. Give me a handful of Advil, and I'll be out there, no problem. And I say me as Bryce Harper, not me, because everyone knows you don't want me out there. Anyway, all right, Nick Castellanos. I've been talking about this guy, and we've all been talking about this guy from the middle of last season to through the offseason to today. Oh, there's no way he has terrible years back to back. That's not going to happen. Nick Castellanos is incredible. He's doing fine. He's better than what we saw last year. Concern level. Nick Castellanos, 6 games into the season.
I mean, he has 12 strikeouts. That's not good. I think that's on a pace for like 320 strikeouts. That's bad. I don't think that they would let him hit that much if he was on that pace at a certain point. He actually had a decent end to his spring. I don't exactly know why he's just not having his timing. I think he leads the majors when I was doing all my research for this article. I think he leads the majors in strikeouts looking right now. And that's probably attributed to just, I don't know, not seeing the baseball, not having good judgment at the plate. Maybe it's a confidence issue. I'd rather see him swing in those situations. I'm sure that like the Phillies coaching staff is saying like, you know, hey, like let's swing bat a little bit. Like, you know how to swing. So the problem is you owe him what, 75 million more. So it's a really tough situation. They're kind of stuck with him, and maybe the pressure will come off the sooner that Harper returns.
The striking out looking gives me wild Pat Burrell vibes. And I'm not talking about like the fun Pat Burrell that's hitting 30, 35 home runs. I'm talking about the called third strike Pat Burrell consistently that we saw really throughout his career, unfortunately. When looking through your article and all this, I'm curious, is there one thing that jumped out to you that said this just isn't going to be able to get fixed this year? This is something we're going to have to endure for a full 162 games.
Right. So I didn't include this because it was counter to some of my arguments, but the Phillies actually have, I believe, the second or third highest batting average on balls in play, which basically I thought it would be the opposite because we're looking for silver linings here, and maybe the luck is going in the wrong direction, and maybe they're just getting bad luck on balls hit into play. But it's the exact opposite. They're one of the best luck teams so far through 6 games on getting base hits that that are just hit to the right spot in the defense. Just good luck. So that is not encouraging because I think the number, and don't quote me on this, was somewhere around a 354 batting average with balls batted into play. You're not going to be able to sustain that. So that was really bad. But if you look at the counter, another interesting thing I saw is that they're only hitting 220 with runners in scoring position. So last year they led baseball, or they led the National League, hitting 270 with runners in scoring position, which was one of the reasons for their success. So both of those are going to revert to the mean a little bit. And if they can hit more with runners in scoring position and, I don't know, somehow continue to get lucky with these balls in play, the hitting is going to continue to come. But those were two key nerdy stats that stood out to me.
Let's talk about two guys that look pretty good to start things off here. One is Alec Boehm. He was off to a great start. Obviously, in the first game of the season, went yard. We're all saying about how he's going to finally give us that pop that he needs to the third base and then part-time first base there for the Phillies, which was great. And now Bryson Stott's starting to hit as well. He is just hitting the cover off the ball. What do you have to say about Boehm and Stott and how they've started out their seasons?
I'm on a fantasy baseball league, and neither of those guys got drafted. So for one, 2 waiver wire pickups for anybody who's into that stuff. And 2, it's really, really nice to get offense from the bottom of your order. Brandon Marsh is actually, before he got hurt, was hitting really well. So that's, another silver lining, that the bottom of the order is pulling its weight. And if you could get an all-star caliber play out of Boehm, who was like the 3rd overall pick, so that's what you think his ceiling is. And then Stott was also a first-round pick. Like, we forget, these are prospects who've been in the system for a while, and like they're not really highly touted anymore. But these are first-round picks. These guys are supposed to be playing in all-star games. They're supposed to be batting in the middle of the order. And if these are breakout years for those two, those are going to be some huge value added, homegrown players to help the Castellanos and the Schwarbers who are being paid millions and millions.
The thing with Marsh is that when the Phillies got him, all the talk was about how he's defensive center fielder. Anything you get from his bat is gravy. He came over to the Phillies and hit 288 after the trade deadline. So I love seeing that guy continue to hit, and hope his injury isn't anything serious. When we look at the season right now, got the home opener coming up later today at the time we air this interview. And then we hopefully have the rest of the season to look forward to and not despise. At 1-5, after all your research, after your fine article, phillyvoice.com, what is your level of concern, Evan Macy, 6 games into this season? How does it look for the rest of this year?
The first month is crucial. If they're not able to be close to 500 at the end of April, then I think that's the point at which we probably start to not care and get excited for Eagles mini camps. May 1st comes and they're 10 games below 500. I mean, we could all probably start to panic. But if they can build out of this and be 1 or 2 games within 500 by the end of April, I think that's promising, because they're going to get Ranger Suarez back. Their bullpen, I mean, Sir Anthony's been bad and Kimbrel's been bad. And these are proven entities who are going to figure it out. And Harper coming back. So I think that, like, the longer they can tread water, the Reds aren't supposed to be very good. That's who their opening day opponent is. Then they have the Marlins. I don't really know what to expect from them. They've been the Phillies, a clink in their armor in the past. So we'll have to see how they handle those guys. But the schedule is not that difficult in April. So if you're looking at a few games below 500, then I think you can still be optimistic.
Here's what I'm going to say. You got Garrett Stubbs, got the Marlin monkey off their back. That's what I'm going to say right there for this home run last year. And then here's my guarantee. Gene Segura hits a home run. Gene Segura hits a home run against the Phillies. You could book it. You could write it down. It always happens. Somebody from the Marlins, some former Phil, always kills them in some at bat. He's going to have a great at bat, and then he's going to belt a home run that's going to hurt the Phillies in later innings. You could write that down right now.
There you go. Find it on FanDuel.
Definitely bet heavy on that. Speaking of that bullpen, real quick, when you talk about level of concern overall for the Phillies, that's certainly a big thing. You're fairly confident, though, when you look at a guy like Sir Anthony Dominguez, he's the guy that's going to be able to work it out. Soto, hopefully he'll be a guy that could work it out. He's had success elsewhere, hasn't really brought it to the Phils as of yet. He gave up that home run that was charged to Nola that I alluded to earlier in the conversation. But do you think those are guys that'll figure it out as the season goes on?
I mean, it's no stranger to people who follow the Phillies that they've gone out of their way to build the worst bullpens in baseball, like 3 years in a row. I really thought that they did a very good job this offseason. I thought that they brought in people who threw hard. They brought in some lefties so that you're not going to be using Ranger Suarez in relief like they did in the World Series. I thought that the bullpen construction was really good. So I actually was very optimistic about it. And then the first week of games happened. It's still a small sample size, and I think that these guys have a proven track record. I still think this bullpen has the potential to be a strength. I don't think it as much as I did 2 weeks ago, but I think that it's possible. And I think that there's talented arms. It's the best bullpen on paper we've had in 15 years. So what else can you say?
Gotcha. And then in closing, finally, Evan, how excited are you for the Phillies' new scoreboard?
I actually saw it. They had a What's New at the Phillies event at Citizens Bank the other day. And they screwed with the media because they had like an image of the old scoreboard up there with like they had like the metal beams and then the skyline behind it. So I honestly sat down and I was like, I'm not impressed. It looks exactly the same. And then they like flipped the switch and it all started and they had a presentation and it was really cool.
Look up. Yeah. Look at the little mind ninjas over there just messing with the media. What the hell's with that? That's great. I didn't know they did that. That's hilarious. Evan Macy, make sure you guys check him out all over social media. Of course, follow him on Twitter, Philly Voice, phillyvoice.com, and make sure you guys read this article about what he's got going on with the 1 and 5 start with the Phillies, why they are in the spot that they are right now. Evan, thank you so much for stopping by. Good to catch up with you again, my man.
Absolutely. Anytime, man.
All right. Evan Macy joining us there on the Ruffin Orthopedics guest line.